Hi, my name is Carrie, and I'm about to take you on a quick journey about Indigenous placemaking. Before I do that, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're on the traditional lands referred to as Treaty 4 territory, and that the city of Swift Current is located on Treaty 4 territory. The original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. Indigenous peoples across Canada have experienced historical colonial aggression and assault. Education was used as a tool of oppression for Indigenous peoples through residential schools, and education continues to be a site of systemic and personal oppression for Indigenous peoples. As such, it's important to ensure that urban development in general and educational institutions specifically understand the importance of Indigenous placemaking. It's a key component to Indigenous collaboration, reconciliation, belonging, participation, and healing. A couple of my blogs posted on the Communities First website investigated safe spaces and placemaking in relation to reconciliation. More often than not, physical spaces represent safe zones where both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people can talk freely, without fear, and without being judged. Placemaking, as you remember, is broadly understood as employing a community's strengths to create a presence in public spaces that reflects the community's identity, health, and well-being. As a super involved and central community member and organization, I can safely say that when it comes to my place of work, the Swift Current campus has not yet put a concentrated effort into Indigenous placemaking. This is despite our commitment to reconciliation and recent strategic alliance with the Office of the Treaty Commissioner. So right now, I'd like to take you on a quick tour to demonstrate this. So welcome to Great Plains College. This is our main entrance, and this is the main welcome area for people coming in to our building. So up here we have a really cool mosaic constructed by one of our alum, which is awesome, and it depicts Paris, Amsterdam, and Rome in an abstract way, and there's a big story behind it, but nothing too Indigenous about it, which is fine, beautiful, but this isn't our main entranceway. And then if you come with me down the hallway, we have a few donor recognition panels. We have pictures like this all over the institution, thoughtful students, sundogs. It's called sundogs. Go dogs, go. We have various quotes around the institution. So this one is by Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which can be used to change the world. And we have a couple down here with Shakespeare. We know what we are, but know not what we may be. How was that for Shakespeare? And so forth. So the majority of our hallways are like plain with little quotes everywhere, pictures, none of which necessarily welcome Indigenous peoples or even recognize them or who they are. So here we have we call them the backlit panels, which I'm responsible for, by the way. And they recognize our donors, home of the Sun Dogs, mission, vision, values, recognize some alum, but again, no recognition of Treaty 4 territory or anything welcoming. We have this oil derrick because we do live in oil, gas, and agriculture land, and this was built by our welding students, so we have this piece of art on display. Back in the day, our slogan was education with energy, and it still is the day because it's still there. But prepare to feel the power, energize your future, set your life in motion. Again, all very nice, but not necessarily welcoming. Hi. And in here we do have our student lounge, which there's a television, places to sit, food, recycling, tennis, table. But again, it is supposed to be a safe, fun space, but again, not necessarily recognizing Indigenous or international peoples. Hi, we're in the gym, and in our gym, we have these murals. We used to be a high school, and then we were a different college, and now we're a different college. So we have these murals of Cypress Hills Regional College, historical mural of Swift Current, Kiwanis and Royal Bank, and some buildings, and then Beauty Playhouse, who are here right now. They're going to put a production in here, so it's kind of like a theater gym space. And as you can see, these murals have zero acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples. Indigenous placemaking is aimed at restoring Indigenous presence through art and design that is created, produced, and driven by Indigenous communities and underpinned by Indigenous knowledge. Where there is no Indigenous cultural representation in space or design, Indigenous peoples do not see their identities reflected in the environment. When this happens, Indigenous peoples can feel like they don't belong in that space, whether it's a room, a building, a park, a neighborhood, or a city. When Indigenous peoples feel like they don't belong, they may not want to be in that space, and this can be reflected in unequal access to education, healthcare, and social services. Further, this lack of cultural representation may reinforce racist attitudes of the lack of belonging and legitimacy of Indigenous peoples. Connection to culture through ceremony, language, peers, and involvement with other community members strengthens identity, but without buildings, structures, parks, educational institutions, and more that reflect this identity, it's near impossible to realize. So, what do we do about it? By taking small steps in your own community or workplace, you can start the Indigenous placemaking process. When embarking on your journey, things to keep in mind are to have a strong emphasis on participation and collaboration with Indigenous and non-Indigenous groups and organizations that are based on trust, equity, and shared goals. Share information on other successful Indigenous public spaces and their benefits, and invite them to share it with you. Work with traditional knowledge keepers, such as elders and healers, to ground the placemaking process in traditional values and principles. Take a holistic approach in an Indigenous context, which means incorporating the spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental ways of being into the community space. And also, don't forget this one, think about ways to fund your initiatives. It can be as simple as incorporating relevant artwork and recognition of treaty territory to something as big as designing a full-fledged building and dedicating it to honoring Indigenous practices and traditions. It's up to you and the community you are a part of. Thanks for listening. I hope this has inspired you to take some initiative in this important area. I've actually inspired myself. I've already shared some ideas with our Indigenous committee here at the college, and they are truly excited and ready to help transform our space here at Swift Current campus. Until next time.